All right, find the drive, find the drive. Gotta get in the car and find the drive. Okay, feel it, feel it. There it is. Yes. Now, if you gotta get in the car really fast and put this thing in drive, how do you know what to press when there's no shift knob or shifter? Well, there's buttons. Just like a Lincoln, there's buttons, and the Lincoln buttons aren't really differentiating except for the little bit wider in the park. But this is. Every button is different. They have different sizes and different feels, like Braille for the driver. That's scary. What is up, Internet world, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're bringing the 2022 Acura TLX Type-S. So this car is special to me because I used to actually own a 2007 Acura TL Type-S. They were boxy back end, big front end, lots of wheel slip, tons of torque steer, and it was comfortable. Great seats, great sound system. I really liked it. And then it vanished until now. So the TLX Type-S is back. So as I open up the hood of this TLS, which is what I like to call it, you've got a brand new 3-liter V6 that makes 355 horsepower and 354 pound-feet of torque. Like, couldn't they just bump the torque by 1 to make a 355 across the board? But anyways, it's tied to a 10-speed transmission from the Accord. And the important thing to know is that the old version was a 3.5-liter V6 that made 280 horsepower. So that is kind of cool. Another thing had torque steer like crazy, so hopefully this one does not. Now, the one piece that's kind of missing in this brand new one is the fact you cannot get it in manual, and you can get the old version in manual, and that was kind of a unique, nice touch. Because if you're going to compete with the Germans, and some of the Germans you can get in manual transmission, why not offer this in manual? All right, in the 2022 Acura TLX, I keep saying TSX or RDX or all kinds of X's, but it's the TLX, because I remember TL and then X, Type S. So there's different drive modes. We've got Comfort, Normal, Sport, Sport Plus, and Individual. Individual is set by just hitting the Acura logo in the middle. It's right here, very easy to use. A lot different than a lot of cars that have just a button. This is like right in your face. This is like bigger than the volume knob. That's where Sport Plus. This does have a more accelerating exhaust. Foot to the ground, 355 horsepower, and go. It sounds good. Shifts hard, quick, fast, and that noise is good. It's just crazy. Like, I really don't watch other reviewers. I just don't ever. But with this car, I did, because I was like, I don't really know what to expect. You know, I don't want to go in there totally blind. I want to see what kind of people's thoughts are about this thing. And people hammered on this car that it just wasn't loud enough, but it's loud enough. Shift's good. It's quick. It's exciting. Seems a bit plumbed in, but nonetheless, it goes pretty good. Considering this thing weighs 4,200 pounds, this is a lot of weight. I haven't used the paddles. I'm just simply shifting in Sport Plus. So the red line starts at 6,200 RPM, and the red line bar goes all the way to about 8,100 RPM. And this is an Acura, aka a Honda. This should not be shifting at 6,000 RPM. This shifts in Sport Plus, foot to the ground, first and second gear to 6,000 RPM. It doesn't even get to red line, which is 6,200 RPM. This thing should be shifting at like, hello, what happened to you, Honda? Come back, come back, come back to life. You were so red line game all day long 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You're getting soft. You're getting soft. All right, so let's talk about brakes. brakes, the pedal itself is kind of flimsy. It's kind of cheap feeling. And when I'm on the pedal, it's good, but the feedback isn't exactly there. And that's same with the most important change and update in this car, and that's the steering. The steering is very, very light. Very direct. No feedback, but when I turn, it definitely goes that direction. I'm gonna hammer on this corner here. On the brakes, on the turn. It's good, it throws itself. So, back end swings out a bit. Anyways, visibility is really good. It's a pretty big four-door sedan, lots of room in the back. Yeah, it's good. A lot of Type S stuff like this on the steering, on the dash, everywhere. It's Type S to death. So to the front, from here, this angle right here looks like a G37, which is the craziest thing because that is basically their competitor. People are talking about the Genesis, I hear you, but this Acura, the brand, is still kind of tied with Infiniti. And from here, it looks like a G37. From the front, it looks very Acura, like the new Acura breed. All black, slender, wide, face down like a dolphin. And of course, you can see that you have all your systems over here. I do like this front grille, obviously this massive Type S badge, and you'll notice all over the car, there's all this Type S badging in case you didn't know you were driving a Type S. So if you look lower in the bumper, I do like the way they have this lower valance in piano black that wraps all the way around. It really gives it a wide stance and it ties back in together with this center valance right there. I just do like the front end. It is aggressive. It is mean and track-like they wanted people to believe. So when I used to have an Integra in championship white back in 2000, one of the things that bothered me was the plastics on the bumper and the actual paint. The color was different. Now I know a lot of cars are also the same way today, but you'd think that in all these years they'd actually make the paint maybe a little bit of a different hue or color so they match better. Because this still looks kind of yellow and this still looks kind of white. So on the side of the TLX, look how big this thing is. This is larger than an A4 and the new C-Class. It's actually almost as big as an A6 or 5 Series, just a hair smaller. So these wheels are NSX inspired and they obviously have the Brembos in the back and they're 4-piston. They're 14.2 inches big and those are 20s and they have half decent tires. I wouldn't say they're the best because I'm not a huge Pirelli fan. They are Pier Zeros, of course. Now the suspension is tuned. You have stiffer front roll bars and rear bars, as well as adaptive damping suspension that looks the road and then adjusts and does all that fancy stuff. The back rear differential overspeeds by 3% to make it feel more rear-wheel drive bias. And in being rear-wheel drive bias, the SH all-wheel drive transfers up to 70% of power to the back and then 100% left or right depending on where it's needed and when you're turning. But visually you can see that it's a very big car, long hood. Obviously they've stretched the car a lot. It's sort of just economical to a certain degree from the side perspective. Man, this thing looks like an Infiniti so hard, like so hard. It's like when I watch like other people's reviews and I'm like, don't be like them, don't be like them. Oh, I'm like them. But take a look at this back. This looks like a BMW 8 Series right here. So the back of the TLX. Actually, this is probably my favorite part of the car is the back. So if we start at the top here, you've got this big shark fin there, and then you have this Mercedes-Benz inspired black rear spoiler that has this cutoff that looks down. It's sharp. I like it. It's nice and angular. But I do like the badge though. The badge is nice. The Acura badge has always been a really nice touch and they've hidden the rear camera in it. And then moving down, you have the SH all-wheel drive because again, this is the SH all-wheel drive version. And then your Type S, one of 55 badges that this car has. And then moving below, I like this nice touch. You've got this massive rear valance there that obviously has the splits and the ducts. And then you have the biggest exhaust that I've ever seen on a four-door sedan, shy of maybe the Blackwing. And there's one little cute touch they've put. In order to open up the trunk, it's not here. It's actually hidden right here. And then you have a massive trunk, which is expected because this is based on a Honda Accord. And how many mics can we fit in this trunk? Oh, we can fit definitely 2, maybe 3 if I don't eat much on the weekend. So I just want to talk about one thing right off the gate, and that is to do with gauges. Now they're analog for the tach and the speedometer. In the center you have a digital display that's really clean and colorful. But people are going to hammer on these analog gauges, and I'll tell you, it's a retro thing. These are the exact same gauges that are an RSX Type-S from 10 years ago. So if you've owned an Acura in the past and you get in, you'd be like, oh, those are cool. Those are my old gauges. But if you're new to the brand, you're like, why are they using these old school kind of basic looking gauges? And well, there's your answer. So if we go around the car, we'll start off with the door panel. And the door panel is nice and thick. They have a good mix of materials. They start off with this aluminum trigon texture that Audi uses. It's a nice touch. And above it, you have your ambient lighting, and then you have your memory seat. You've got two of them. Let's talk about the upper dash. They've done the same sort of vibe with the door panel, except they've kind of screwed it up. This red stitching is just in the wrong places. It crashes into each other. And then they have this black inseam stitch that's strange. Well, let you make the decision. But then there are some really cool features that this thing has, which is amazing. It's got a heated windshield, which is awesome. It's got HomeLink in the mirror. It's got heated steering wheel and a ton of good, clean buttons on this awesome steering wheel with the Type-S logo. The stitching on the steering wheel is done well. You have aluminum pedals. You have this dynamic mode right on the dash. It's very aggressive and very sporty-like. And then there's the infotainment, which is the weirdest thing ever. I didn't know people still use trackpads. Are we stuck in 2005? But more on that later. Let's talk about the HVAC. Very clean, sharp, easy to use. I like the way it's styled around the dash. You've got ventilated and heated seats. And then you have a monster armrest here with a ton of space with USB, USB again, and then of course an auxiliary with a cigarette lighter. So good thinking, Acura. You got lots of space. And then a monster wireless charger right here for a phone wide enough for the ones coming out in 2030. But before I forget, this thing has the most unique placement of how to access the camera on the infotainment. And it's right here, right here. Boom, that's the camera. Isn't that the strangest place to put the camera activation button? Like this should be to spray your front windshield or do something different. Not put your camera on, but hey, that's cool. Now before we jump into this 10.2-inch screen, I want to tell you that this thing has 17 speakers and it's phenomenal in here. The sound system is amazing. It's just getting to the sound you want to listen to that becomes a problem because it's not a touch screen. This is a trackpad you have to use. And this trackpad mimics a touchscreen. So it's not like a trackpad. It's like a trackpad that tries to mimic a touchscreen. So it's a bit of an uphill curve here, or steep curve, to try to figure out how to use the screen well. So we'll start off the basics. You hit the home button here, and this is what you get. You get the nav on the right side, and then you get navigation, phone, FM radio, Bluetooth audio, and satellite FM, and then of course, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. And then you can scroll over, and then you get your next bunch, which is messages, USB, auxiliary input, so on and so forth. But the weird part though is that you have things separated, and I don't really like that. You should have audio and then have, your satellite radio, FM, your Bluetooth audio. Now you just have straightforward buttons there, but to get to it. So let's put my finger in different spots, and there we go. I got it pretty well. It's just awkward because if I go left and right, it does one of these things where it just makes this little jingle, 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 jingle. So when I'm using the system, the easiest thing for me to do is just set up presets or favorites and then use the steering wheel to kind of toggle through it. Using this screen, again, it's fairly basic, but this touchpad thing is kind of annoying if you're trying to get to something fast and you have to kind of backtrack a few times until you actually get it, which is rather annoying. So I would say Apple CarPlay, and that's about it. Then there's the camera. Because this is a 10.2-inch widescreen, the camera doesn't come up on the whole screen, where it should. It only comes up on half the screen or 1/3 of the screen, and the resolution isn't that great.
High quality.
Oh yeah, the best. The best or nothing. And the steering doesn't really turn when I turn the steering wheel, which is also kind of annoying. And then there's different views. When I want to get different views, I use this little trackpad, and as you can see, I'm trying to find the right one, and it's not the easiest. It just jumps around. And there's your color and brightness for you. So the back seat of the TLX Type-S. Ooh, this is soft. Nice. This armrest. Cool. This red reminds me of like crimson red from BMW. It's a nice, nice color. And so you have two cup holders right here and a little spot for your cell phones. You've got vents here. And of course, because this has a really, really good sound system, you've got a speaker above you on each side. You've got some map lights and then of course, two monster speakers behind you. Also visibly sitting back here. It doesn't feel claustrophobic, even though it doesn't have a panoramic sunroof. You would think at this level of car you'd have a full panoramic. It's just an individual sunroof, but the seats do not make you feel claustrophobic. Sometimes you get seats that are just like more squared off. This is more tapered, and I can see pretty much everything in the back of this TLX. Now there's complaints about headroom, and I'm 5'9", and I'm almost touching. I might have another 1.5 inches, so anybody 6 foot is going to be almost touching in the back here, which is a little bit of a disappointment on something so big. And the other disappointment is There's no USBs, USB-C, or any sort of plug in the back for me to plug anything in, because this is, after all, a four-door sedan. It shouldn't have it, right? Let's go one more time. Just let's go one more time, for the love of it. Okay, no launch control, nothing. Just foot to the ground, that's it. 1, 2, 3. So this is what I think. So all the stuff they've put in this car, so let's talk about it. You've got Brembo brakes, you've got a twin turbo V6, you've got stiffened suspension, you've got new chassis, you've got everything sporty related to this car. It's like they just took all this parts off the shelf, put it in here. They've obviously done some suspension tuning, all that stuff to make this thing more aggressive, more agile, and all that stuff. And that's kind of the problem, because it's not really a ground-up sporty four-door sedan, and it's just like they're putting parts on and saying, hey, you've modified your car. And that was good like 10 years ago. Let me get out of Sport Plus. But in today's world, the competition is just so good. Like the M340i, which is such a beast. That thing is like solid, it's quick, it rips, it feels good. You can toss it around the corner. It feels way lighter and way more agile than it actually is, or whatever. And this thing is like, it's got the feeling of agility, but I can feel that there's weight behind it, if that kind of makes sense. And it's also a longer, bigger car, so that's kind of cheating. So I have to always think about what this thing offers and its cost. The price is really good. So for $60K, it's $10,000 cheaper than an M340i with the same equipment. So then you're like, yeah, 10 grand can buy a lot of things. But then you also think about resale. Are you going to save the 10 grand, or will the M340i still be worth 10 grand more in 4 years or 5 years? And that is a really good question. But there's the biggest reason to buy this thing. You want to hear it? The answer is nobody's got it. Yep, there aren't much of these out there. They're not lineups in the parking lot when you pull up in this thing. But an M340i, you go to a mall, there's at least 3 to 4 of them. You pull up to a mall in this thing, nobody's driving this thing. Like, there's none out there. I've not seen one on the street yet. Have you? If you have, let me know. All in all, for the money, I don't think I can hammer on the TLX that bad. I think the outside looks are good at certain angles. I think the overall vibe of this thing is good. It checks all the boxes for all the things you do need. Would I buy one? Maybe like 0% financing, potentially. But I probably wouldn't just stroke a check for 60K plus taxes for this thing. I'd probably just save up until I could afford the extra 10 grand and buy the BMW, or meet somewhere halfway and possibly buy the Genesis G70. Well, hope you guys like this video, taking this bad boy back, and we'll see you on the next one.